welcome to All Steelers Talk, your home for everything Pittsburgh Steelers, presented by allsteelers.com. Happy New Year's from our friends over at Manscaped. The ball has dropped, but that does not mean that you have to drop the ball on your balls. It's time to bring sexy back in 2022 and step your game up with Manscaped's Performance Package 4.0. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped to help them ring in the new year with the right tools for the job. Go to manscaped.com and use code ALLSTEELERS for 20% off plus free shipping. It's a new year, new you, and a new you means no pubes. Derek, this is the first time I get to ask it. How you liking the Manscaped box?
Man, I can't believe they sent me something so expensive. I feel so privileged. It's awesome, man. Like everything they sent me in that box was very helpful. So all the trimmers and stuff are great. So
did you use the nose one? I'm very Italian. The nose one.
I use that one pretty often just because for work and stuff. I always try to trim my stuff up. So
you'd be looking good. See, I don't.
Trying
for the next 6 months,
yeah,
I'd be chilling.
Sorry, I'm having trouble.
Do you hear my Alexa right now?
Yeah, she's going crazy.
She just came on over nowhere. We'll give her about 3 seconds, and then we'll keep it going here.
Wait 30 seconds.
I wonder who's talking to me. It's telling me that there's no internet. All right, we're good. A six-pack is a great New Year's resolution, but how about a six-pack for your balls? The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0 contains 6 essential tools for the ultimate below-the-waist grooming routine. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the Signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin. The advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate nuts. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light to the promised land 2022 looks to be. It's also time to freshen up down there in the new year. The Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You already put deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not putting deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? And for on-the-go freshness after you leave the gym, you'll love the Crop Reviver Ball Toner Spray. Start the new year with a fresh set of testes, thanks to Manscaped. Manscaped even threw in their shed travel bag to keep all your goodies stored comfortably. And speaking of comfort, the Manscaped anti-chafing boxer briefs are also included and will bring your boys down south to the next level. Manscaped also wants you to go beyond the groin this year with their new refined cologne, which offers a light yet masculine, pleasing fragrance. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code ALLSTEELERS at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code ALLSTEELERS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code ALLSTEELERS. Have no regrets this year with our friends at Manscaped. I can't believe Alexa jumped in on that. That thing happens to me. It's doing it again.
Sorry, I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
I don't know what's going on here with my good friend. I'm not going to say her name. We're done saying her name.
She wants to be on the podcast.
No, all right. So let me tell you a creepy story about this. I don't know how it's hard. Okay, she's done. Let me tell you a creepy story about this. So I lived in an old apartment, and I started dating this girl, the girl that I'm dating now. And when we first started dating, she would tell me little stories about how she believes that she's haunted, quote unquote haunted. Yeah. Oh, and at first I was like, haha, this is hilarious. And then she'd tell me stories like her sister would see her grandmother in her dreams and then have this vivid picture that she would need to paint, and she would paint it, real creepy stuff. Then she showed me a case, a chest that she took from her grandmother's attic. And she was like, you have to look on the inside. And she opened it up. And on the insiders are demon drawings, the most terrifying little sketches you've ever seen in your whole life. It's terrifying. All right. So that happens. And I'm making a joke out of it. Ha ha ha, whatever. She's over my house. We're getting ready to go to bed. All of a sudden the wall starts banging. And I'm like, nah, that's just, I don't know, whatever. I blew it off, kept it going. 2 days later or something, I'm sleeping. It's 2 a.m. That thing turns on. And it's here's today's weather. And I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden I heard like a big bang in my living room. So I got up, went back in, came back out, and she's like, here's the survey that you asked me for. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The next night I go to bed. It's 2, 3 in the morning. Dude, it starts playing classical music like at a low volume and then like slowly rises. Dude, I freaked out. 2 women came like walking by my window 5 minutes later. I lived on the first floor of an apartment building. They start arguing outside my apartment building, like outside my window. It's pouring rain. There's classical music playing. It's 3 in the morning. That was terrifying. Terrifying. Yeah. We've moved since then. It wasn't a good time. I don't know what's happening here. Maybe it followed me. The Steelers, we'll talk about the Steelers. The Steelers don't have any demons. They don't have any ghosts. They don't have to deal with her. What they do have to deal with is a new quarterback and a new general manager, which Art Rooney II confirmed today that Kevin Colbert will step down following the 2022 NFL draft. He'll maintain some sort of role, but they'll give it to somebody else. Do you like that Kevin Colbert is staying until after the draft? I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't know how I feel about that one.
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical just of the entire process in general. I think Colbert staying on is fine as long as the next GM is in-house, for example, Brandon Hunt or Omar Khan. As long as that's the case, I don't think it's a huge deal. Now, for an outside candidate to come in and take that role after the draft, I've always hated that. I don't agree with it. And the biggest reason why is mainly just the quarterback position. So, for example, if they do decide to select a quarterback in the draft, quarterback is the most important position in football by far. And everybody has things they like, dislike. You bring in a general manager who, say you spend a first or second round pick this year on a quarterback, that next general manager might not be as big of a fan as like you guys were that were in the building when you picked them. So, and I know people have used like Baltimore as an example with Ozzie giving the Ravens Lamar. Obviously, that's a good example. I mean, but I don't know how many people wouldn't want Lamar Jackson as their quarterback on a rookie contract stepping into the job. I think that's a pretty good place to be. Whereas like Sam Howe or somebody like Kenny Pickett or some, you might not. None of these guys are like those type of prospects, in my opinion, to where everybody's just going to feel the exact same about them.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, and there's too many options. You know, the Pittsburgh Steelers could draft a quarterback, or they could draft an offensive lineman, or they could draft a defensive lineman, or they could draft a middle linebacker or a cornerback. There's just so many holes that the Steelers need right now. You don't know what that next general manager is thinking. And especially they said that they've interviewed Hunt and Khan, but they're open to bringing in somebody from the outside. I don't think you can bring somebody in from the outside if you've already went and drafted the players that this group have put together or that this group wanted, and then say, oh, okay, you know, here you go. Again, the Lamar Jackson story is a good one, but most of them don't turn out like that. Does that eliminate an outside source? If you draft with this group, it's got to be this group, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I almost feel like it's just a repetitive circle of them telling us they're going to look at outside names, and then they never do with pretty much everything, like the coordinator spots, the
Patrick Graham. Can't forget Patrick Graham.
So we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to say like definitively no, because it's not my decision, but I would be very surprised if it was an outside hire. My biggest thought though is either Hunt or Khan, I think, would do a good job. I mean, they've been around that culture. Rooney talked today about how they didn't want to change like the organizational like landscape, but I lean towards Brandon Hunt, man. I not that I know an incredible amount about either guy, because you know we don't see them or hear from them very often in the roles that they're in. But Brandon Hunt having a scouting background to me is still you can get it done both ways. You can have a numbers background, you can have a scouting background, but to me, I just think in that position, I always want somebody who's been through the ringer with the scouting and can identify talent. Brandon Hunt's credited with being one of the key voices in terms of bringing in Minka Fitzpatrick from Miami. So I like him. He's definitely my favorite candidate, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the scouting department's the best way to go, especially when you're in the midst of what people would call a rebuild. You want them to be, I mean, trades are going to happen, especially now. Like if you name Hunt the general manager and say, all right, well, maybe go look for some quarterbacks, see what could happen. He's got a better understanding of how to go do that than I believe anybody else outside of Kevin Colbert. So I agree with that one. I think I'd be okay with either of them. I like the mentality that you're just going to go from one general manager to basically the same general manager because and in different ways. So the Steelers defense has some holes, and I truthfully believe that the Steelers defense has not met expectations. That's a way better way of putting that. In the last 5 years, even when they were like crazy good in 2019, I still thought that there was areas where they could have been better. So to just get rid of Keith Butler, he retires, but to get rid of Keith Butler and just say, okay, we're just going to add somebody that's already part of this defense instead of getting a fresh pair of eyes in there, I think that hurts. Whereas building the team as a whole and running the organization as a whole, I think has done a excellent job in the last 22 years. And to keep somebody, with that same mentality, I think helps. But with the coordinators, I think that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. It is. I could rant on about this for a long time. I think, but at the end of the day, I mean, like we talked about, I mean, this is Tomlin's defense. They're going to live and die by that. That's his side of the ball. So really, whoever's the defensive coordinator, I mean, they're obviously going to help a lot with the game plan, the coaching aspect of it. But as far as like the play calls and the implementation of, the scheme or the ideas, I mean, this is Tomlin's defense.
Let me ask this. With the Terrell Austin move, which, isn't official yet, but Butler, what stood out about Butler I don't remember when it was, but it was this season. He said, Mike is more of a guy that focuses on the pass defense where I'm more of a guy that focuses on the run defense. I felt as if when he said it, it was more like we're focused too much on the pass right now. Moving a guy like Terrell Austin, is that just going to make it worse?
I mean, the best thing that I can say about Austin, while his record maybe as a defensive coordinator is maybe a little spotty, but I think the biggest thing for him is I think that the defensive backs really took off a little bit like under his tutelage. You saw Terrell Edmonds continue to take steps forward. Cam Sutton was a guy that they developed. Hasn't been perfect. Obviously, they missed on Justin Lane. But, I thought I saw more development in their defensive backs like over the past 2 or 3 years with him in the building than I did ever under like Carnell Lake or guys even before him. So it's been a long time since we've seen that. So I'm optimistic there. It's a passing league. We have so many teams around the league that are letting opposing teams run the ball on them because they want to stop the pass. So I don't necessarily worry about it a ton with that. My main thing with Austin is I'm intrigued by some of the improvements that I've seen in the defensive backfield, especially because we're about to go through. I mean, Edmonds is a free agent. Hayden's a free agent. Witherspoon's a free agent. I mean, we could see 2 to 3 more new pieces in that secondary. And I think having a guy that at least has some track record of developing guys is good. I'm excited about that. I'm assuming that's what they'll do is promote him.
Yeah. I have not heard anything different. And I feel as if the guys that they've brought in, I get the Richard one. Patrick Graham, I did not agree with. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here, but I just felt like his resume was very boring outside of worked with Bill Belichick, which cool. Like
it's a who league. I will say the one thing that I like about Graham is I thought that 2 years ago he took a Giants defense that didn't have a ton of talent and really overachieved, which I think is, the Steelers fans, I think that they underachieve every year, but we don't. I think they overachieved this year. But yeah. I definitely think Graham had them as an overachieving unit last year. I will say that Graham's defense is really versatile and like diverse. Like it seems like he'll use his personnel to work like what he's got. If he needs to play zone, he can play zone. They do a lot of different fronts. Like they play 3 and 4 man fronts. They mix it up like Belichick's always done. He'll play different fronts depending on down and distance. So I like that aspect of it, but I'm not sure about him blending in with Tomlin though.
No, I don't think any outside coordinator is going to work well with Tom. It's just too much power to ask somebody to step in and kind of just be like a scapegoat type situation. Speaking of the Steelers defense, though, Rooney also shared his thoughts on Stephon Tuitt. In the last couple of days, a lot has, I feel, come about of Stephon Tuitt. We don't really know what the future is, but his Pittsburgh area home was sold. Usually that means nothing. In this situation, it could mean a lot. Rudy said that they'll meet with him in a couple of weeks to talk about the future. Do you ever expect Stephon Tuitt to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers again, given all the evidence?
I don't know, man. I'm obviously very considerate and praying for him and his family. But with that being said, I mean, just from like a football perspective, I mean, it's tough on both sides, really. I knew that this was going to be a heavy topic this offseason. Because here's the deal: Tuitt missed pretty much all of 2019 with an injury. He bounces back in 2020, has a career year. It was phenomenal, by far the best year of his career. And then last year, misses all year with the knee injury / the stuff he was dealing with personally. But he's one of their highest paid players, and he's got a cap hit. They added a void year to his contract, but he's still got a cap hit next year of like 14-something million. They don't save a ton of money by just cutting him, but I don't know how you're going to trade him. I don't know what you're going to get in return to offset the value. That's even if he wants to play football again. We don't even know that. So I think that's the thing that they've obviously got to figure out first is, does he want to continue to play football? If he does, then you can worry about, all right, what are we going to do with this contract? Whether it's, I don't see them extending him to make him cheaper just because, I mean, I don't know how you extend a guy who's missed 2 of the last 3 seasons at that type of money.
That's where I was heading. I think the only way financially that this could work out for the Steelers is if they do extend him, but I just don't think that you could.
But it's such a gamble.
It's such a gamble because you can't, at the same time, though, like maybe you could extend him to a very low deal, like it still doesn't work out in the Steelers' favor, I don't believe, but it's an option. It's a healthy year. It's a year that he didn't put wear and tear on his body. But at the same time, like Butler made it known a couple of times throughout the season or early in the season that Stephon Tuitt needed to get into football shape. And I saw him. I walked by him 2 or 3 times early in the season. I didn't see him much at the end. And you could tell that he was making that transformation, but he wasn't in the body that you're used to Stephon Tuitt seeing. At the same time, though, like you do have to understand that the mental aspect of this is huge. It's the most important part. It comes down to him ultimately. I don't know if he doesn't play. Do the Steelers just roll with Chris Wormley? Is that an option?
I mean, I think Wormley is going to be in the fold. With Tuitt, if Tuitt doesn't return, and Alu has said that he wants to come back, but there's Alu's older. He's 35 years old. He's not a guaranteed lock to be back either. Really, it just depends. But I definitely think they need an investment, whether it's a free agent or a decent draft pick to come in and contribute early. Just because, I mean, we saw this year you need 6 defensive linemen, and once injuries and things like that start happening, you don't want to get into the situation where you're playing guys like Henry Mondu and guys like that just off the streets, big snaps. So I think if there's a good thing that could have came out of this season, I do think that Loudermilk showed a lot more than I thought he had in him, to be honest with you. I did not like his college tape whatsoever. I thought he was a decent scheme fit for the Steelers, but I just didn't see it. I still don't know if I ever see him developing into like a starter just from like a pass rusher standpoint. I think he's really, really raw there. But a run defender, I thought he was one of their better run defenders on the defensive line. So that was encouraging, and he got a ton of experience this year.
That was my question next is you're probably going to get Monty Adams back on like a pretty team-friendly deal. Isaiah Loudermilk is there. Probably going to get Chris Wormley back. He's a free agent, and he played pretty well. You might get Tyson back. We'll assume Tyson comes back. Is that enough? Like, if you roll into the season with Monty Adams, Chris Wormley, you don't expect a jump. You don't expect any type of jump.
I think you've got to add one more guy, like preferably a guy that can play at the end spot. just because, I mean, if you want to roll the Wormley thing, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about this moving forward throughout the spring, but Wormley's deal is kind of interesting to me because he did have his best year of his career, but he converted a lot of pressure or a lot of sacks with not a lot of pressures over the course of the season. So I don't want to say that his season was lucky. It just like pressures are always a really good indicator of the future. If you're a guy that's constantly around the quarterback, you're going to accumulate a lot of sacks. He really didn't get a ton of pressures, but he had a decent amount of sacks. So I wonder how the Steelers are going to view him and prioritize him and what that deal could look like. So that's interesting to me. I definitely think Adams has to be back. I really liked what I saw just from an athleticism standpoint, really quick off the ball. But yeah, I definitely think you still need to add another guy capable of at least playing in the rotation at defensive end. Cam Hayward's also getting, I think next year he's going to be 33.
Yeah.
That's a lot of wear and tear. Like he's a guy that doesn't need to be playing, 80, 85% of snaps. You probably need to get that or in the 70s just with his age. If you want to kind of prolong his career to where he could still be a big piece of the team, when this rebuild's done, hopefully in like 2 years or something like that.
All right. So say Tuitt doesn't come back. Tyson does. Where on the priority list, where do you put defensive end?
I mean, they've got holes everywhere. I mean, I've tried to explain that to people. I don't know, but they've got a decent amount of money to spend in free agency. But they've got holes on the defensive line. They have a massive black hole at inside linebacker that they got to get figured out. They were bringing Devin Bush and Joe Schobert off the field. Schobert's not going to be back, in my opinion. No. Bush will be, but I still think there has to be an investment in inside linebacker. That was some of the worst inside linebacker, I think, play that I've ever seen.
When Marcus Allen plays significant snaps at dime, you start to realize this is a problem.
And then, obviously Witherspoon, you hope that he comes back, but if they can't retain him, you got to – I mean, even if they retain him, you still need to go get a corner. With Joe Hayden probably not coming back. Edmonds could be back on a team-friendly deal. I don't know what you pay a guy like that that's just really like a solid run player, limited playmaker, though. I still think he'll probably cost you like $3-4 million per, which I wouldn't necessarily hate.
No, that's a good deal. I mean, what was this? His 5th-year option was almost 6.5 or something like that. Yeah. To get him on 3-4, that'd be fine. All right, where does inside linebacker? I think inside linebacker is pretty high on that list.
I do too.
I don't know if defensive end is above corner either.
It's really just a matter. I mean, because you almost have to look at this through stages, right? Like seeing you got to look and see who they're going to bring back of their own guys, and then you'll see what the start of free agency looks like, and then you got to move towards, the draft. And then after the draft, you'll kind of be able to see, like, what more than likely what the team's likely to look like come training camp. And you'll see, like, throughout the summer, like, all right, where do we have holes and who's still available? Who could we possibly bring in or trade for before the season really gets rolling? So, there's a lot of questions, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Offense just has more youth to where really you're just figuring out, like, who's even going to be a part of this thing moving forward.
Yeah. Especially in the offensive line, which is where we'll turn our attention here. Not the offensive line. We'll talk. I thought about it like a couple days ago. The amount of times we are going to talk about the Steelers' offensive line and quarterback situation this offseason is going to be wild. Wild. That being said, we're going to talk about the Steelers' quarterback situation. We talked about it a billion times this week. We might as well do it one more time. First off, Ben retired officially yesterday. Do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share on good old Big Ben's legacy here?
None that I've already shared. I mean, I've spent 10 years on Twitter trying to educate folks about Seven. So no, but I'm just really grateful, man, that we got to watch him for that long. I mean, just incredible influence, on my life, my love of football. So I'm very grateful for that. I'm excited about, I can't wait for him to go into Canton. It's gonna be an awesome scene, man. I'm hopeful that that's in the world.
We got every technology issue going on here. Gosh. I can't say the thing's name again.
Anyway,
I'm almost.
No, I'm really excited about Canton though. I think that's gonna be an awesome scene with the amount of Steelers fans that are there.
Oh, that's going to be nuts. How far are you from Canton? So me and Donnie after the show Tuesday or something, we're trying to figure out where Kentucky is, because I don't think I really even realized Kentucky actually ever existed.
You don't need to visit Kentucky. So I
didn't realize, because you said you're 2 hours from the combine, which doesn't make any sense to me at all, because you're 6 hours from Pittsburgh. I just don't get what Kentucky is.
So Louisville is where I'm from, and I'm like 2 hours away from Indy, 2 hours away from Cincinnati. Canton, I've never been to Canton. So my favorite player growing up was Ike Taylor, but Ben was like right there with him. Yes, that was my favorite player growing up. Ben was right there with him, knowing, just kind of like took over like the older I got. But I told myself that I wanted to go to Canton so many times, and I haven't been able to get there. But like I've already promised myself that I'll be there no matter what the cost is when Ben goes in. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be Steeler Nation's everywhere. It's going to take over that place. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think it's going to be crazier than Troy's, to be honest with you. Like, it might be the craziest Canton enshrinement of all time. All right, mobile QBs. That is the theme of the Pittsburgh Steelers offseason. Everybody, Dwayne Haskins and Mason Rudolph both had to answer, how are you a mobile quarterback? You're not, okay? That's where we've come to. At all costs, the Steelers will find a mobile quarterback this offseason. Let's just be real honest here. Where is the best option to find a mobile quarterback? Because frankly, I don't see many options out there. A lot of them, none really super great.
Yeah. So I think I still will say that I'm not a huge fan of this draft class just in general. So if it was up to me, I would go get Marcus Mariota. In free agency,
top choice.
Yeah, that's my top choice. But mainly because like I'll probably seem like really pessimistic, but I don't think the Steelers are going to be very good next year. I mean, it's impossible to say because like the roster is only half filled out. They only have like 38 contracted players. But I don't anticipate the Steelers being extremely good. I would love to fix the offensive line in the draft and start to build that up for the next guy. And I would be okay with running Mariota out there for a year and just seeing what happens. I mean, you're probably not going to get anything crazy from him, but I think he's a good enough bridge guy to where you can go in and get your next franchise guy, hopefully in 2023. As far as the draft, man, like if they do go the route of taking a quarterback in the draft, which is not what I want them to do, but if they do, and I could see them doing it, we know they've done a lot of work on Kenny Pickett and Sam Howe, especially Howe, who I think most Steelers fans are going to be upset by, I think, how much they like Howe. But they've done a lot of work on both of those guys. Both of them are not they're not necessarily running quarterbacks or dual threats, but they're guys that can actually like move around and like improvise and create more time in the pocket like Rooney was talking about today. I'll tell you what, which we'll talk a lot about this moving forward, but if it was me and if I had it my way, I think you always swing big at quarterback. That's my problem with Howe and really Pickett. I don't see either one of those guys ever develop, and even at their peak, being like top 10 guys. And I think if you're going to take a quarterback in round one, that's what I want. There are two guys that I think if things work out absolutely perfect could be in that territory. And the first is Malik Willis from Liberty. That dude is a runner. So I don't know how they're going to feel about that. He is a runner, but insane arm. But he had some brutal games this year. I mean, there's a lot of talent, the consistency and the footwork and the mechanics, processing, they all need work. But as far as like from a skill set and a trait standpoint, I mean, he's got the arm, he's got the legs, incredible athlete. Other guy is Desmond Ritter from Cincinnati. He's a guy that I really, really like watching. He, took Cincinnati to heights that they had never been to in college football. But I have really big concerns about his accuracy issues, which I think are some of those are from his mechanics. But he's another guy, really, really good athlete. Maybe not as good as Willis, but really good athlete with a good arm. That if things work out and you can develop him, you could have yourself a franchise quarterback. So
I saw NFL Draft Bible had Willis to the Steelers. I have not seen. Do you think Ryder goes in the first round? I don't think he does.
So Ritter could go. He could. I mean, Kuiper. So like, I always pay attention to who puts out what, because there's certain guys that I feel like have their fingerprint on like NFL GMs' minds, and they know who they like, who they don't. Kuiper talked about a month or so ago that Ritter was actually in conversation for QB1, and he was for some teams at that point. But I think Ritter, like I'd feel great if you could get Ritter in like the third round. That's really that's what his tape shows he is. But he's not going to last that long. But I think if, you went offensive line in round 1 and he was there in round 2, I could see a scenario where like a lot of people would be banging the table depending on what the board looks like.
But at that point, you're still passing up. At the second round, there will still be high-end cornerbacks.
This draft is so loaded too. I mean, the cornerback position in this draft, I had this take earlier. I was in a space like a couple weeks ago talking about the draft. I think that this could be the best corner class since I started like scouting NFL draft prospects, which is like 2013. This might be one of the best corner classes ever. I mean, there's going to be guys that are taken on day 2 that could be legitimate like cornerback ones for 10, 12 years.
Jameis Winston was a name that got dropped heavy yesterday. Donnie was not having it at all.
I'm really indifferent. I mean, I don't know what people's expectations are. I think the Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson thing is just like, it's just a Hail Mary. And the team's not ready. They have so many holes that they're not ready to win right now. So whoever they bring in, man, I'm fine with that. I think just from a stylistic standpoint, if you want somebody that can move a little bit better, Mariota moves a little bit better. I think Winston's a better passer, but I'm good with neither one of those guys are going to cost you very much. But my problem with drafting a quarterback this year is if you do have to spend a first round pick on a quarterback and they're not able to fix the offensive line, you're really not going to get a good chance to evaluate him. And that's what this process is about. Like whenever you're flipping over quarterbacks, whether it's free agent, or a high profile draft pick, you want to get the chance to evaluate them, but you can't do that when they're on their back every play and running for their lives. We see that all the time, like young quarterbacks, unless you're like a generational talent, and the odds of the Steelers stacking generational talents at quarterback back to back like this are next to zero.
Yeah, zero. Actually, they are zero.
Yeah. But stacking generational quarterbacks just doesn't happen. But unless you're that type of player, your surroundings matter so much. Like who your coordinator is. They announced Matt Canada's coming back. That's not good for a rookie. This environment is not a good spot right now for you to throw a rookie. The weapons are just okay. You can't run the ball. Your offensive line is terrible. Like I said, maybe that's the route they go. If you feel strongly about a quarterback, pull the trigger. But I personally don't.
I don't either. I think that you wait until I just think the options next season are, if at worst, just as good. And that's fine.
No, I'm telling you, next year's class is way better in my opinion.
That's what I'm saying. And the thing is like people will be like, oh, well, if you bring in this guy, if you bring in Jameis, you're going to get a top 10 pick. If you run with Mason, you're going to get a top 10 pick. It's like, well, if you bring in Desmond Ritter, you're probably going to get a top 10 pick. Like the chances are your team's not going to be good enough to. Ben Roethlisberger won a number of these games this season. Pretty much.
Well, people don't want to admit that either, though. And he was a problem. He was a problem in some of those games on why they were close, because he did play well early in the game. But he did win. Yeah. I mean, 7-game winning drives. But
that's what I'm saying.
Nonetheless, though, that's my thing too. I think that you've got to give the next guy a better palette to work with than what's there right now. I mean, it's just not good enough. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be interesting to say the least.
Yeah, well, I think when we come, I'm very excited. If we're being honest, I want free agency to just end. I want it to be over with because I just want to talk about the draft. Like I care less about anything else that happens. Sign an offensive lineman in free agency, get your extensions done. Maybe make a splash, just draft anyone good.
But I'm telling you, like waiting to 2023, I know that's hard for some people to compartmentalized. But dude, I'm a big CJ Stroud fan from Ohio State. I think the kid is gonna be dynamite. I mean, I really like Bryce Young too, but Stroud's just bigger. And I think he's gonna be, a top 2-3 pick next year. So maybe the Steelers aren't quite that bad to get him. But I'm a big fan of like his NFL upside. I loved what I saw throughout the year this year.
Yeah, and teams move up. I mean, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, prime examples. Two teams that were pretty much ready, jumped into the top 10 to say, all right, let's get our quarterback. The Steelers, if they have a team ready next season, it's way easier to go, yeah, let's just trade up and get our quarterback than
This is also like my point with quarterbacks too, though. And like, I know it upsets people about that I'm not like, I guess, as high on Kenny Pickett, but like for me, and that's what I'm talking about, taking swings at quarterback.
Yeah.
If you take a swing on a high upside quarterback and you miss, obviously it hurts your franchise because it sets you back a couple of years. But getting like a top 15 to 20 quarterback in the National Football League, it really doesn't do, like, you're just going to be stuck in quarterback purgatory. And that's what I feel like if you draft Howe in the first round. I don't know that I see that type of ceiling to be able to like be more than that. And that's like I feel like with those guys or a lot of the guys in this class, you're always going to be looking for something better. It's going to be like, yeah, they're good. They're good enough to start for sure. They're not as bad as a lot of fans think they are, but like, are you going to compete seriously for like division titles and to like win playoff games? I just don't know, man. It's tough.
The replacements that people name for the Steelers this season are those guys. It's Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston. Baker Mayfield now is going through it. Guys that you're just like, all right, well, we tried our best. If they just weren't good enough. You need a quarterback that's a generational quarterback or nothing. Those are your two options.
Really, like,
just ride it out.
Yeah, I mean, like after the top 8 quarterbacks in the league, everybody else is just really like they're a product of their surroundings, really.
Yeah,
like if you have a good surrounding, they're probably gonna succeed. If you don't, then they're not. And that's really how I feel about that. You should be wanting, like, if you don't think a guy is a top 8 to 10 quarterback, like if he hits his peak or his absolute ceiling, then you shouldn't take him in the first round. And that's just my thought process on that.
I definitely agree. I think that the Steelers are going to be in a little bit of a press situation. I think that the mindset that we need to continue winning is going to definitely add some pressure. I don't know how they'll handle it. This is the first time in 20 years where they have to handle that.
Uncharted territory.
Uncharted territory. It's a scary time, but I'm excited, man. I'm excited for the future. Like I said 10 times, I'm excited for the NFL draft. Screw the rest of the offseason. I don't even care. Draft, then we'll sit around and do absolutely nothing, get real fat for a couple of weeks, and then training camp. That's all we're looking forward to. Thank you, everybody, for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Don't forget to check out jersey giveaway on Sunday, dropping the video at 11 o'clock. You're going to want to watch it to make sure that you comment to be entered to win the jersey. That's 11 o'clock on Sunday. Subscribe to us. Follow us on Twitter at Nostrack, at Steelers_DB, and use our promo code AllSteelers at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping. We'll see you next week.